All right, time for lesson 3.4, multiply a fraction by a fraction. Please write down the I can statement. I can multiply a fraction by another fraction, and do not forget to put lesson 3.4 at the top of your page. Off we go. So when we're multiplying two unit fractions, we're going to take a look at this equation to start with. Let's look at the equation 1/4 times 1/2. Okay. Now for me, visually, it makes more sense if I can see what's going on. So we're going to take a look at this board. Okay, suppose I had a board and I wanted to cut it into 4 equal pieces. So there I've got my 4 equal pieces here. All right, so that would represent my fraction 1/4 right here. Okay, now that I've got it cut into fourths, now let's say I took one of these fourths and cut it in half. What fraction of the original board would I have now? Okay, so if I cut this in half, I need to know what fraction this portion here is of the whole board. And then I find it helpful if I just cut the rest of those sections in half as well, so I have a good visual of what I'm looking at. So now I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of those. Okay. So if I take one of these sections, I'm taking 1 out of 8 or 1/8. So the answer to the multiplication problem, 1/4 times 1/2 equals 1/8. Let's look at a couple more examples like that one. We're going to keep the board the same board. So let's say I take that same board and I'm going to start with it into fourths. And now I'm going to cut each fourth into 3 equal pieces. Well, how much is this going to be worth? Again, let's take a look at cutting the rest of those sections up like that. So I've got 1, 2, 3. So I've got 3 in each section now. 3, 6, 9, 12. And I've got one of those, so 1/12. So when I look at this fraction multiplication problem, I've got 1/4 times 1/3 equals 1/12. What if I cut each fraction into 4 equal pieces? Well, same rule is going to apply here. So let's start with our 4 fourths already. Now I'm going to cut that first section into 4 equal spots, and I'm just going to be talking about this. Now, can you figure out how many that's going to be when we get to the end of this board? Think about that for a minute. I'll throw in those extra pieces again. So I've got each section, original section, cut into 4. So 4, 8, 12, 16. I've got one of them. So I've got 1 out of 16 pieces, or 1/16. So 1/4 times 1/4 equals 1/16. I wanted to share this page with you too that was in the math journal that we aren't using currently, but I thought it was a useful explanation. It says Miguel explains how to use fraction bars to find 2/3 times 4/5. Now you'll notice here, now I'm not using unit fractions anymore. Okay, so let's take a look at this first one. So using the fraction bars that are divided into fifths, the first thing he does is he circles 4 of those 5 parts. Okay. Now to find 2/3 of 4/5, he can circle 2/3 of each individual fifth. So again, just look at the blue circles. These are still all 1/5. You can see what he's done here. He's split each of these into 3 equal parts, making them all into 15ths down here at the bottom. It's 3 per section times 5 would give what? That's why this becomes 15 here. Okay. So now the bar is divided into 15 equal parts. Okay. After that, he can circle 2/3 within each fifth that he has. Kind of like what I did with the board. I showed you what one part was. He's showing 2 parts of each of these. Okay. So 2/15 plus 2/15 plus 2/15 plus 2/15. Okay. You probably figured out already that that's going to end up being 8/15. So he circled 2/15. So he's got 4 groups of 2/15. That's 8/15 in all. So 2/3 times 4/5 equals 8/15. Okay, just another visual way to look at it. You got to go with what makes the most sense to you. Now, I'm just going to go over the rule for multiplying any two fractions, and then I am going to give you some examples to take a look at before we jump into our practice problems today. Okay, so the rule is, and you'll notice I've got different letters here to represent different fractions, but A over B, or A out of B times C out of D, can be written as A times C over B times D. Now what that means in English is that I can multiply the numerator. When you multiply two fractions, you multiply the numerator times the numerator, and you multiply the denominator times the denominator. And if you're worried about forgetting it, I would suggest you jot that down. Again, the numerator times the numerator, the denominator times the denominator. All right. If we look at this example right here, 2 times 4 is 8, 3 times 5 is 15. So there's an example of doing that. We're going to take a look at that on the next page. So I'm going to leave that rule up here, the one we just talked about. So we've got 3 times 4 fifths. So I'm going to multiply the numerator times the numerator. 3 times 4 is 12, and 4 times 5 is 20. Okay, let's go to the next one. Okay, 2 times 7 is 14, and then 7 times 8 is 56. So 2 sevenths of 7 eighths ends up being 14 56ths. All right. 5 6 times 1 fourth, well, 5 times 1 is 5, and 6 times 4 is definitely not 56. That should be 24. Here, hang on a minute. Let's pretend that said 24 all the time. Let's do that. No. This is 20. This is really easy to do with a mouse pad. 4. Okay, that should be 24. Sorry about that. And then the next one, I've got 6 times 5 is 30, and 8 times 9 is 72. That one's right. So when we take a look at this part right here, we've got 6/8 of 5/9 ends up being 30 70-seconds. The big thing you just need to remember as you're going through these is you're going to multiply numerator times numerator and denominator times denominator. Okay, so let's take a look at our practice problems today. You need to solve and write your answers as fractions. Even if they're improper fractions, please leave them as fractions for now. All right, and have a great night.